The time has come where the bulletproof cars of years gone by are now starting to get long in the tooth and showing their age, and the new cars that are supposed to replace them are garbage. What are we going to do? Let's get started. This is actually the niece of Mrs. Wizard. This is her 2018 Chevy Malibu with 120,000 miles on it. And she went to a shop that gave her a huge, massive estimate on some things that needed repairs. But this thing has only got 120,000 miles on it. And unlike the Malibus of yesteryear, where you could get them with the 3.8, which was a bulletproof engine, those things are still on the road. 300,000 miles, some of them. Still going. I can guarantee you one thing. This one won't be. Or any of these Malibus of these years in 20 years from now are going to still be on the road. They don't build them like that anymore. So we're kind of at this crossroads right now. And even Hoovie mentioned it on his Pearl Beautiful Escalade. He's done multiple videos on it. You guys have seen it in Hoovie's garage. It's actually done, waiting for him to pick it up. But even he mentioned on this, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, this was a no-brainer, bulletproof SUV. They just go and go and go. And they do. But it still doesn't change the fact, like he mentioned on his video, this is 20 years old now. And he's having trim pieces inside fall apart. He's having pieces of moldings fly off while he was driving. The rear air suspension has just been repaired. It had holes in it. And the air compressor for the suspension also died from age. No matter how bulletproof a car is, each year that passes, when the years go by, it eventually takes its toll on it. So the cars that we remember, the Buick LeSabre, the Tahoes, the Escalades, the Lexus LS400s, all of these cars that are absolute tanks are now starting to get, like I mentioned, long in the tooth. They're getting age on them. Or even as bulletproof as they are, even they are starting to have lots of problems because they simply can't help the fact that they're getting to be 20 and 30 years old already. No matter how well you build a vehicle, plastic only lasts so long. And even back in 05, 06, 07, 08, when they were making these, they still had plastic intakes, plastic parts, plastic interior pieces. And after 20 to 30 years, they start crumbling, they get brittle, they break. It happens. I've been finding just in the last 2 or 3 years, and some people have commented it's government conspiracies or all these different problems. I don't know what the issue is, but 90s cars, early 2000s, the parts are drying up. You can go somewhere sometimes and find a company that has a few parts in stock, but you really have to search. Kind of hard sometimes to find parts for some of these cars that I can remember, like this one. Back in the day when these were fairly new, you could go to any parts store and they just had oodles of parts for these things. Not anymore. I don't know how many times on an early, mid, late 90s vehicle that I contact all the major part suppliers in town and in Wichita, and I get the same response. We can get one, it's going to be 3 to 5 days, possibly even longer than a week. There's one place left out in so-and-so, Colorado, Texas, that has a couple of these left. But we can get one, it's going to take a week. And I just, to myself, I'm like, what happened? I can remember as a tech years ago, I could order 5 of these and they'd be here in 10 minutes. Where'd they go? What we're seeing each year that passes, more and more of these bulletproof cars that we remember of the past are going to the junkyard. They get wrecked. Something happens with a fire, a house fire, burns the house, things like that. It takes these cars out. The demand decreases, and the companies that make the parts are seeing the numbers. They're like, last year we sold 300,000 units. This year we only sold 100,000. It's getting to the point where we need to stop here and be done making these parts. Let's head back over to the Malibu. And these are some of the models that were iconic years ago that we thought were bulletproof, and now this is what's replacing them. I don't care if it's Hyundai or Kia or Honda or Ford or Chevy or Dodge. All the offerings they have in 2018, 19, 20, 23, they're getting to be junk. I've talked to some of my friends, Cameron from DC Motor Works, or even Johnny the Car Ninja, and how we frequently talk about how the newer cars, Mercedes, Audi, it doesn't matter the brand. They're garbage. They're absolute garbage. There are so many plastic parts on them, and the engines are designed basically to fail. They're making the timing chains, the turbos, the parts, all the different things on it. They tweak it with their engineering to say this will last 100,000 miles. That's good. We don't need to go any further. We don't put another dime into it because the CEOs need their $50 million bonus at the end of the year, and we don't dare cut into that. That's kind of what's going on, I think. Maximum profit. They built you a car, yes it runs, yes it drives. Will it be around in 30 years? Hell no. They don't want it to be around in 30 years. They want you to buy another new car. Let's take a look at the list of what was found wrong with this. Then we'll take a look around it, get it on the lift, and kind of verify what they were saying. We're also going to talk about under the hood of this car, some of the problems they're having. So she mentions she's hearing some clunks on this thing. She had it at some shop in Wichita, I'm not sure where it was. But they quote her all front struts, all rear struts, front CV boots, and in alignment. And it was going to be some odd thousands of dollars. So obviously they know I'm the car wizard. They messaged and said, does this look right? Does the price look right? And I said, hell no it don't. That's extremely high. It's like, well, can we get the car in to get it serviced at Omega? I said, sure. So here it is today. Let's take a look around this thing and also jump under the hood. So it looks like she went through a bug storm in south central Kansas. All the bugs are there on the grill. But otherwise, it looks like a decent car. It has kind of a neat styling. As you go along the side, you'll see a few dents here or there. It is a daily driver. It's not something they use to polish up and make it look pretty for the weekends. But the paint's decent. It's not fading. Doesn't seem to be rusted or anything. You can see it is basically a base model Malibu. Also on the mirror, it's missing its cover on the side here, or actually around the top. And there's a dent. Let's go ahead and jump under the hood. I really wish that I'm about to open this hood, I would see a Buick 3.8. This would be so great for this car. It would last a long time. Unfortunately, we have an Ecotec 1.5 turbo. Many of these Ecotec engines are having tons of trouble with turbos failing, timing chain, oil consumption. Again, they're not built to last 300, 400,000 miles like the cars of yesteryear that we've talked about here recently. With General Motors especially, you guys know I've mentioned a 3.6 V6 that have severe timing chain problems that sometimes can be an engine replacement because it goes so bad, so wrong, so fast. Timing chains, a lot of people hear that and say, oh, that's a lifetime item. I never have to do anything. But what is the definition of lifetime? For the people who made the car, the factory that made the car, a lifetime is maybe 100,000 miles. Once you exceed that and you say, I only got 150,000 miles, I didn't get a lifetime out of this, the manufacturers say, yes, you did. For us, 100,000 miles is the lifetime of the vehicle. And then they would look at you and say, why aren't you buying a new car? Why are you even fooling around with this? Because back in the day, it made sense to fix your car and keep it going. You keep money in the bank. You don't keep buying new cars all the time. I actually have a cart with a turbo, very similar. It's actually a 1.4, I think, an Ecotec. Let me go grab the turbo. This is a brand new turbo. It's actually off of a Buick Encore. You guys have heard in the videos I've talked about in the past that those are garbage. Actually had a local dealer who's no longer in business anymore. They brought us a Buick Encore with a bad turbo, with the 1.4 Ecotec, which we know, you guys are gearheads, know that the turbos on those drop like flies. He said, go ahead and do it. I gotta have this thing running. I can't sell it like it is. I got the turbo ordered and was just about to install it, and I just had a hunch. I think if this guy knows how much this is going to cost, he probably will back out of this deal. And I'll get stuck with all this labor. Anyways, long story short, we called him with the estimate, and he immediately blew up. Oh, hell no. He says, I'm not paying that. So I have this turbo, and I tried to return it. For whatever reason, they wouldn't take the return. It's only $300 or $400. It's not a huge loss. But these things are failing like crazy. They're having the turbo wastegates fail. This is right here where it gets sloppy, the actual bushing there, and won't be able to seal and hold pressure, and then you get a code. Also, they're having the turbos actually lock up and seize up. And various other issues that go on that just makes this thing unusable.
Okay, Wizard, so a lot of cars don't come with turbos, so why does it have to be replaced? Can it run without it?
It can, but it'll be very sluggish. You'll have warning lights on the dash. Some vehicles actually go into a limp home mode where you can barely, you probably won't even be able to get on the highway. It'll run terrible, it'll smoke. And trust me, if you try to drive it for about a week without the turbo working, you'll be like, I can't do this. This is not going to work. You'll know right away it's not going to work. So thinking of these newer cars, I've actually been getting emails where people say, I'm checking out this 2023 Toyota. I'm checking out a 2024 Hyundai, this or that. What are the goods and bads of this car? I don't know. They've only been out 6 months or a year. They're still in factory warranty. Why would anyone bring that car here to be repaired when it will be zero cost to have the dealer fix it under their warranty? So based on that fact, the cars of 2023, 24 are not coming in and out of this shop. There's no way I can know what is good and what is bad on them. But some of the newer ones I have seen, they're very cheaply made. That brings to mind, I have a friend whose dad buys GM vehicles all the time. Every few years buys a new SUV, like a Yukon or whatever, Yukon XL or Yukon Denali or whatnot. And it's been happy with them, you know, they're okay. Every few years I get a new one. But just recently, the new one came out. He went and got it. He just about turned around and took it back. He's like, this is garbage. There was things already breaking. There's plastic pieces. The dash feels like it's made out of Legos. It's so chintzy. Like you push on it and you can hear it go. It rode terrible. It got worse gas mileage in the year that he got before. He just about returned it. I don't know what happened after that or if he just decided to keep it, but a lot of newer cars, I don't know why, it's almost like they just don't care anymore. So these new cars that are coming out now, 2022, 23, 24, are they going to last to 2044, 2054? There's no way. They're built so chintzy and cheap now. So you say, well, okay, well, Toyota, Lexus, those are the best. Those will last. They are still the best option as compared to the rest. But even now we're seeing in 2024 that Toyota Lexus is having issues with their turbo V6s, grenading because there was debris in the engine left behind from manufacturing, and it's basically bricking the car. They're still the best as compared to the rest. But it's going to be interesting to see going forward. What's it going to turn into? Let's get this thing on the lift and see what we see based on the complaints. So Mrs. Wizard's niece has had this vehicle since new. And it's really the only problem they've had is they hit something in the road and it damaged the oil pan. They had to get that replaced. And there's currently, as I can kind of a quick glance, I don't see any leaks. But they're at that crossroads now, 120,000 miles. That's when things on these newer cars starts to really go downhill. Let's do a quick check. I don't see any leaks from the radiator core area. Fan looks good. Again, no leaks. It must have had this replaced at some point. It probably hit it and tore it. Or you can see there's currently more scrapes on it. Right there, and this was hit as well. You can see some damage. No leaks going on the transaxle. Brake pads are about 30% remaining. The struts don't appear to be leaking. And this CV boot is good. And this one's good as well. You can kind of tell they're cheaping out. There's no plastic panel or anything under here. They just leave it wide open. And even the stuff that's here doesn't take much to just crumble and break there. They've already got a hole there. Let's check the other wheel. Yep, I do see grease coming out of this boot here. So that one will need to be replaced. Again, the strut doesn't appear to be leaking. Pads are about 30% remaining. Nothing going on there. Exhaust looks intact. Nothing broken there. Not much going on here. Just a big open pan. Then we come to the back. That shock is definitely blown out. You can see the crust has been accumulating dirt. The brakes are about 30 to 40% remaining back here. There's kind of a clunk there with a sway bar link. Brake pads are 30-40%. This shock is also blown out. Nothing loose there. There's more plastic in the back and in the center of the car than there is up front. There's a lot of plastic on this. So it does have rear shocks blown out for sure. The clunking she's hearing very likely is the front struts. We'll road test it to verify that. It does have a CV boot that's slinging grease, and a lot of people ask, why don't you just replace the boot? Because you can get a whole CV shaft nowadays for 60 bucks. A boot's going to cost 15 to 20, and then the labor to take it apart, you actually have to pay someone to do it and put it on, and you're at 60, 80 bucks. Why didn't we just buy the whole axle? It has to come out either way. Regardless of which path you choose, there is no savings in a shop to just do the boot. Now there is on some Porsches that have $1,000 CV shafts. It does make sense, but not on these. Let's get this thing on the ground. One thing I just noticed lowering this car down on the lift is it took forever, because it doesn't hardly weigh anything. And maybe that's good for fuel efficiency, but it doesn't hardly weigh anything because it's made just strong enough, like I mentioned, to last 100,000 miles or so, maybe a little longer. They're not supposed to last for 400,000 miles. That's no longer in the game plan for the new car that you just bought, sadly. So with the parts right now, this car is in the golden era. A brand new car I can't get parts for, 2024, 23, it's only going to be at the dealer. It hasn't even been out long enough for the parts to be aftermarket made at the parts stores. But now, like I mentioned, we're seeing in the 90s cars, they're stopped making them because there's no demand. But with these, there's still tons of these on the road, and they're just getting to the age where they're starting to break now. So the parts are readily available for this, very likely, luckily. We'll get these issues resolved that we just found, get this car back to Mrs. Wizard's niece, and it'll be no more clunking, no more leaking on the shocks and other things going on. But how much longer will this car last? Will we see this car still on the road in 2045? Hell no. No. I don't know of any newer car that's going to last even that long. What's the answer? How are we going to fix it? You guys in the comments can let me know what is going to happen going forward with cars. So if you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to work on this Malibu or any other car in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. The tools we use in the shop are listed for sale there, and if you purchase anything, we get a small cut, and we really appreciate it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button because there's so many more cool videos to come. Thanks for watching.